Welcome back, everybody. In the previous lesson, we got our admin home VC UI set up. One thing that I do want to point out is that if you click on one of our categories here, we're going to get a crash. And that's expected, and the reason for that is because since we are subclassing our home VC, if we go and check out the code for that, it has some expected functionality for when we click on an item. It's expecting to be able to segue to a products view controller. And obviously we don't have that yet in the admin storyboard, so that's going to crash. So just a heads up that is why that is happening. If you happen to try that and see that crash and we're worried, that's expected. We just haven't added the products view controller yet. But in this lesson, what we're going to work on is we are going to get started on the add edit category view controller. And just to refresh, let me see if I can bring the finished app up here. All right, so this is what we're going to be working on. Pretty straightforward. We have a text field for the category name and an image view for the image. When we click on the image, we launch our image picker view. We can pick an image and then it sets it here, put in the category name. We're not going to get through all of this in this lesson, but we're going to try and get the UI and the image picker in. All right, so let's get started. First thing we're going to need is a new view controller. So I'm going to open up our object library, search for view controller, and go ahead and just drop that in. And then we're going to need a view controller file. So here in Artable admin, we're going to right click and say new file. And this is going to be Cocoa Touch class, say next. And our view controller, we are going to name this add edit category VC. And that's because we can use this view controller to add and edit the categories. I'm going to say next and create. All right, let's go ahead and do a little bit of organizing here in our Artable admin project. I'm going to create a new folder or a new group called controller and drop in our 3 code files that we have so far. And we'll go ahead and just leave that like that. All right, so back here to our main storyboard, let's go ahead and set the class for our new view controller. So with our view controller selected here, go to the identity inspector and set the class to add edit category VC. Very good. Now we need to create a segue from our admin home VC to our add edit category VC. So control and drag and say show. And then we need to specify a segue identifier. So click on our segue right here, go to its attributes inspector and set an identifier. We are going to call this to add edit category. And I'm going to make sure I spell that right. Category, there we go. I'm going to copy that and come up here to our constants shared file. And let's go ahead and add a segue here. I'm going to say static let, I'm going to paste that and then paste that again. So we have our to add edit category segue here. And then we're going to come back into our home VC, our admin home VC. And now we can set our segue right here, add category, and we can say perform segue with identifier, and the identifier is segues dot to add edit category, and the sender is self. All right, let's go ahead and save that, run it, and see if we're able to segue over to our empty add edit category VC. All right, clicking on add category, and there we go. Very good. All right, so let's open up our storyboard and go ahead and add in our UI. And we are going to need a couple of labels. Drop that in right here. We're going to need a text field for the category name. and another label below that. So I just held Option and dragged to create a copy of that label. And then we're going to need a UI image view. Just going to drop that in here. And then let's add an activity indicator. We'll put that there. And then finally, we're going to need a button. We'll put that down here at the bottom. Alrighty, and let's go ahead and start adding some constraints here. So I'm going to grab our top label here, and this is going to say category name. And we're going to center it horizontally in container, add one constraint, and then set it from the top 20 and add one constraint. Then we're going to grab our text field here. And I'm going to say 12 from the top and then 20 from each side. And say add 3 constraints. And we'll set the placeholder text to be category name. And then we have this label here. This is going to be some instructions. We're going to say tap image to add category image. And then we'll bring that over here. And we'll go ahead and set its constraints. We'll say 20 from the top, 20 from the left, and 20 from the right. Add those 3 constraints. Then we'll center the text alignment. And then with our image view here, let me go ahead and resize this a little bit. Drag down our activity indicator and go ahead and set the size. Add constraints. We're going to say width of 200 and height of 250. And then we're going to go ahead and set its top constraint, 20 from the bottom of the UI label above it, and then center it horizontally in container. There we go. Then we're gonna grab our button here, pull it down to the bottom, and set its constraints. We'll say 20 from the left, 20 from the right, and 20 from the bottom. We'll give it a height constraint of 40. Then double clicking on it, we can change its title and say add category. And then we're going to change the text color to white, change the background to our dark blue. There we go. And then we're going to change everything to Futura. So with our button still selected, let's go to our font, change the font to custom and family of Futura. There we go. And then with our 2 UI labels selected, change the color to our dark blue, and then change the font to custom and the family to Futura. Whoops, not Farah, Futura. There we go. That looks good. Let's grab our activity indicator here. I'm going to change its style to large white and then change the color to our blue color. I'm going to move it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to constrain it 20 from the bottom of the UI image view. So its top constraint is 20. Add that constraint, then center it horizontally in the container. And then set the hides when stopped property. For our image view here, we should have a camera image from our assets folder. Go ahead and set that content mode to be center. And then we'll give this a background color of a light gray. There we go. And then set the class to be rounded image view. Perfect. So let's save that and run it and see how that looks. All right, clicking on add category. And there we go. All right, it looks real good. One thing we can add is the add category button. It can be a rounded button. So I'm going to select that and change its class to be a rounded button. And then let's go ahead and start adding our IB outlets, okay? So with our storyboard open, I'm going to hold Option and click on our Add Edit Category VC.Swift file to open it up in our Assistant Editor. I'm gonna go ahead and delete these comments. And before I forget, you're just gonna make sure we have set, okay, we do have set the Add Edit Category VC. So I'm going to close our right and left hand panels just to give us some more space. And I'm going to select our category name text field, control and drag, and say name text. I'm going to grab our image view. So I'm going to pull over and say category image. And then our button, I'm going to pull over, control and drag, and add an action. So this is add category clicked, and say connect. And then add an outlet for our activity indicator called activity indicator, and say connect. And I think that's all of the outlets and actions we're going to need. So I'm going to close our assistant editor, reopen our left and right hand panels, and then open up our add edit category vc.swift file. And what we're going to do is we want it so that when we tap on the that camera image view, that we launch the image picker view. Okay, so we need to add a touch gesture recognizer to our category image. So here in view did load, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say let tap equal UI tap gesture recognizer. The target is self, and the action is, we'll say selector, and then we'll go and create that function right here. I'm going to say at objc func image tapped. And the syntax for this is we want to say underscore and then tap and then UI tap gesture recognizer. And then we can say right here is where we will launch the image picker, which we'll get to here in a second. All right, so then we can add in our image tapped function here. And then we need to set the number of taps required. Tap.number of taps required is equal to 1. We also need to say that the category image is user interaction enabled is equal to true. We can do that here, or we could do that in storyboard. Right here, we can say user interaction enabled. Okay, so you could do that in code or right here. We did it in code, so I don't need to do it there. And then finally, let's go ahead and add the gesture recognizer. So we say category image dot add gesture recognizer and pass in tap. All right, so now when we tap on that image, this function will be called. So what do we want to have happen here? To launch the image picker, it's actually pretty straightforward, not a lot of code. The iOS SDK makes it pretty nice, actually. So we're gonna add an extension here for our add edit category VC to handle the UI image picker delegates. And we are going to go ahead and add those protocols here. We want the UI image picker controller delegate. Okay, it says here that this is a set of methods that your delegate object must implement to interact with the image picker interface. Okay, so that's the one we want. We also need the UI navigation controller delegate right here. This is the delegate that we use to modify behavior when a view controller is pushed or popped from the navigation stack of a UI navigation controller object. So that's just used internally by the SDK for the image picker. And as part of the UI image picker controller delegate, we have two methods that we want to implement. The first is the did finish picking media with info, okay? And what we get back from that is this info dictionary. And inside of that, we have the image picker info key, okay? And we're able to get the selected image from this. So the way we do that is we say guard let image equal info, and then the value that we want is dot original image. And this specifies the original uncropped image selected by the user. And we are going to cast it as a UI image, and that returns a optional, so we need to unwrap it using guard let. And now we have the image that we selected. in our image picker. So what we want to do with it is we want to then set that image to the category image. So I'm going to say category image dot image is equal to that image that we just got from the image picker. Now one thing is we'll also need to set the content mode. So I'm going to say category image dot content mode is equal to dot scale aspect fill. Because in the storyboard we set it to center so that the camera image would look good. But now that we have this new image, we want to change the content mode back to aspect fill. And once that's all done, we simply dismiss animated true completion nil. The other method that we can use is image picker controller did cancel. And all we want to do for that is just say dismiss true and nil. So that's if we cancel without selecting any image. So now all we need is a function to launch the image picker. So I'm going to say func launch image picker. And we just need to initialize an image picker. So I'm going to say let image picker equal UI image picker controller, and this is a view controller that manages the system interfaces for taking pictures, recording movies, and choosing items from the user's media library. All right, so we initialize one of those. We set the image picker delegate equal to self so that these methods can be called and notified. And then we say present the image picker animated true, completion nil. And then up here where we have our image tapped, we simply say launch image picker. Very good, let's go ahead and try this out. All right, so let's go to add category, tap on our image, that launches our image picker controller. We can select one of these images and there we go, it set it. One thing that we obviously need to do is set clip to bounds on our image. So let's go ahead and do that. Back to our main.storyboard, select our image and set clip to bounds. Save that and run it again. Add category, select an image from our camera roll, and ooh, there we go. Very, very nice. All right, so let's go ahead and finish up this video here. In the next one, we will continue working in this view controller and start talking about file storage. All right, so I'll see you there.